30 Morning Promises. It was just past 5 when Ethan Carter walked through the front door, the weight of a heavy decision pressing down on his chest. He had never thought he'd be standing at this crossroads in his life. The kitchen smelled of roasted vegetables and garlic bread, the scent that had always made their home feel warm and welcoming. Maya was in the kitchen, setting the table with quiet, practiced hands. Her movements were familiar, comforting even, but Ethan couldn't find any comfort in them anymore. He dropped his keys onto the counter and walked over to the table. Maya looked up at him, offering a soft smile, but Ethan noticed it didn't reach her eyes. She had always been good at hiding her true feelings, but tonight it seemed harder to pretend. There was a distance between them, one that had been growing for months, if not longer. "Maya," Ethan began, his voice quieter than he intended. "I need to talk to you." She didn't reply immediately, only nodded as she continued to set the table. Ethan sat down, his mind racing. He had rehearsed what he was going to say 1,000 times, but now that the moment had come, the words felt foreign. He reached for his glass of water, but couldn't drink. His throat felt tight, constricted. She sat down across from him, her movements as calm and controlled as always. The silence between them was nothing new, but tonight it felt suffocating. Maya poured herself a glass of wine and took a sip before looking up at him. The pain in her eyes was unmistakable, even if she hadn't spoken a word. He could see the hurt in her gaze, the disappointment, the confusion, the fear. He knew that deep down, she could already feel what was coming. Ethan swallowed hard, trying to steady his nerves. He reached out and took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin. "I want a divorce," he said, the words barely escaping his lips. It felt like an earthquake had just shaken the foundation of his world, and there was no turning back now. Maya didn't react immediately. She stared at him for a long moment, her fingers twitching slightly beneath his. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "Why?" Ethan's heart twisted. He didn't want to answer her, didn't want to hurt her more than he already had. The truth was ugly. The truth would break her. He had no way of explaining that he had fallen in love with someone else, that he no longer felt the same way about her. He had tried to bury the feelings, tried to pretend everything was fine. But it wasn't. It hadn't been for months. He opened his mouth to speak, but couldn't find the words. The silence stretched on, until finally Maya stood up, pushing her chair back with a sharp screech. Her face flushed with anger and hurt. "You're not a man, Ethan," she spat, her voice trembling with emotion. "You're a coward. If you had any respect for me at all, you would have told me the truth sooner." And just like that, she was gone. She left him sitting alone at the table, her half-eaten dinner still on the plate, her pride and her pain lingering in the air like an invisible cloud. Ethan felt sick to his stomach, but he knew there was no going back now. The damage was done. The night was long. Ethan lay on his side, staring at the ceiling, the weight of what he had just said pressing down on him. Maya was on the other side of the bed, her back turned to him. He could hear the soft sound of her breathing, but it didn't comfort him the way it once did. He knew she was crying. He could feel it. He had broken her, and she had every right to cry. Ethan closed his eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. His mind kept racing back to the one thing that had torn them apart. Lena. Lena Brooks. She was a graphic designer Ethan had been working with on a marketing campaign for the past few months. She was everything Maya wasn't: spontaneous, adventurous, free-spirited. She made him feel alive again in a way that he hadn't felt in years. Ethan had fallen for her, deeply and completely. He had told himself it was just a fling, that it was nothing more than a distraction. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. He knew that what he felt for Lena wasn't something he could ignore or brush aside. Maya deserved better than this. She deserved a man who loved her, not one who was secretly in love with someone else. But no matter how many times he tried to convince himself, he couldn't deny the truth anymore. His heart belonged to Lena now. And the guilt was suffocating. The next morning, Ethan didn't speak to Maya. He couldn't. The words were stuck in his throat, and he was terrified that if he said anything, it would only make things worse. He didn't know how to explain what had happened, how he had fallen out of love with her. He didn't know how to make her understand. Instead, he spent the day drafting a divorce agreement. It was the least he could do. The agreement was simple. Maya would get their small 2-bedroom house, the Honda SUV, and 30% of the shares in his company. It wasn't much, but it was fair. Ethan hoped that by offering her this, it would soften the blow a little. Maybe it would show her that he wasn't heartless, that he still cared, even if it wasn't in the way he should have. Maya didn't say a word when she read it. She simply tore the agreement to pieces and walked away. Ethan sat there. He knew it was a futile gesture, but part of him had hoped for something different. A part of him had hoped that maybe, just maybe, she would understand. That night, as he lay in bed, Maya's cries echoed in his mind. Her pain was raw, and it tore him apart. But there was nothing he could do. He had already made his choice. He had already decided. The next evening, Ethan returned home late after spending the night with Lena. Maya was at the dining table, writing in a notebook. She didn't look up when he walked in. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He didn't even deserve to be in the same house as her. He skipped dinner and went straight to bed, but he couldn't sleep. The weight of the decision was too much to bear. When he finally woke up, Maya was still at the table, scribbling away in her notebook. She didn't acknowledge him. She didn't even look at him. He turned over and drifted back to sleep. The next morning, Maya handed him a piece of paper. It was her version of the divorce terms. Ethan didn't want to look at it, but he did anyway. She didn't want the house. She didn't want the car. She didn't want a penny. But there was one condition. 1 month, Maya said, her voice calm but resolute. Before the divorce, I want us to live like nothing's changed, at least for Noah's sake. His exams start next week. He doesn't need this right now. Ethan blinked, taken aback. Okay, that's fair. And there's one more thing. He waited. Maya took a deep breath. Do you remember how you carried me into our room on our wedding night? Ethan nodded. He had never forgotten that moment. It had been one of the happiest of his life. I want you to carry me out of our bedroom every morning, she said, for the next 30 days. From the bedroom to the front door. Ethan stared at her, unsure if he had heard her correctly. Are you serious? Dead serious. He laughed awkwardly, not knowing what else to do. You're crazy. Maybe, she said, but that's the deal. Take it or leave it. Ethan sighed. He knew there was no way out. Fine. Later, when he told Lena about Maya's request, she rolled her eyes and laughed. "She's desperate. You'll still leave her," Lena said with a smirk. Ethan didn't respond. He didn't have the energy to argue. The first morning was awkward. Ethan bent down to lift Maya, who was stiff and cold in his arms. Noah clapped from the hallway, grinning. "Daddy's carrying Mommy!" He giggled. Ethan forced a smile, trying to push the guilt aside. He carried Maya out of the bedroom, through the hallway, and to the front door. He set her down gently and watched her walk to the bus stop. The whole time, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. As the days passed, carrying Maya became easier. There was a strange familiarity to it, something that tugged at his heart. Maya began to lean into him, and the closeness felt right. But there was still a distance between them, something they couldn't bridge. On the fourth day, as Ethan carried Maya down the hall, he began to feel something he hadn't expected. A sense of intimacy that had been missing from their marriage for a long time. They had been so distant for so long, but now, in these small moments, something was shifting. He couldn't explain it, but it felt real. By the 5th and 6th days, they had fallen into a routine. Each morning, he would carry her out of the bedroom. Each morning, Noah would cheer. Ethan would smile, but inside, he felt a growing sense of loss. One morning, Maya stood in front of the mirror, trying on different outfits. She seemed frustrated as she turned this way and that, but nothing fit quite right. "Everything's loose," she said with a sigh. "I've lost weight." Ethan blinked, taken aback. She had lost weight. No wonder she felt so light in his arms. He hadn't noticed until now, but it struck him all at once. Maya was growing thinner. And it wasn't just the weight. Her hair was graying. Her skin looked more tired than usual. Suddenly, he felt an overwhelming sense of guilt wash over him. When had he stopped noticing her? When had he stopped caring? He reached out and touched her head gently. She turned to him, her eyes softening. Noah came running in, eager as always. "Dad! Mom! It's my time!" Maya smiled and pulled Noah into a tight hug. But Ethan couldn't help but feel like something was slipping away from him. This wasn't the way things were supposed to be. He held her again that morning, but this time it felt different. He didn't want to let go. By the 3rd week, something had changed. The mornings felt different. The routine had settled in, but now it was no longer just a ritual. It had become a part of their lives, something they both looked forward to. Even Noah had stopped asking why his parents were acting so strange. One morning, Maya hugged Noah longer than usual. She smiled, but her eyes were wet with unshed tears. Ethan had to look away. He couldn't risk it. Not now. On the final morning, Maya felt impossibly light in his arms. Ethan could barely make it to the door. He whispered to her, his voice thick with emotion. "I hadn't realized how far apart we'd drifted." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. The truth was there between them, hanging in the air. Ethan kissed her forehead gently before setting her down one last time. He drove to the office, but when he got there, he couldn't go inside. He rushed up to Lena's apartment instead, desperate to make things right. Lena opened the door, surprise flashing across her face. "You're early," she said. "I'm sorry, Lena," Ethan said, his voice full of regret. "I can't do this. I'm not getting divorced." Lena's face twisted in disbelief. "Are you serious? After everything?" "Yes," he said, his voice steady now. "I still love her. I just forgot. Lena slapped him hard across the face. Then, without a word, she slammed the door. Ethan didn't care. It was done. He didn't want her anymore. He wanted Maya. He drove straight to the flower shop down the road, ordered a bouquet of white lilies, Maya's favorite, and scribbled a note for the card. "I'll carry you every morning until death do us part." He smiled, his heart swelling with hope as he headed home. When he walked into the house, the silence hit him immediately. The flowers in his hand felt heavy now, and his smile faded as he called out for Maya. There was no answer. He went upstairs, hoping, praying that she would be there. She was in bed. Her eyes were closed. Her face was pale. Ethan rushed to her side, shaking her gently. Her hand was cold. A note lay on the nightstand. "Ethan, I have cancer. I've known for months. I didn't want Noah to see his mother abandoned. I wanted him to remember his parents in love. Thank you for carrying me again. I waited for it every morning. It was the happiest part of my day. Love you always, Maya." Ethan sank to his knees, the flowers falling from his hands. Noah's laughter echoed in his mind. The moral of the story is that it's the little things that matter in love. The small gestures, the morning routines, the quiet care. It's not about money or success. It's about attention, about choosing to love. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more heart-touching, real-life-inspired tales, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. Your support means the world, and I'll see you in the next one.